From our free daily newsletter, the latest from podnews.net with Spots Now. We start in Australia today. The Infinite Dial 2026 was released by Edison Research at SSRS and Commercial Radio and Audio. 55% of Australians consumed a podcast in the last month. The US figure is 58%, and 45% in the last week. That figure's on par with the US. In news that'll please Apple, 27% of video podcast consumers say they consumed a video podcast on Apple Podcasts in the past month. The field work for this study was done April the 12th to the 28th, starting less than 3 weeks after the feature publicly launched. That figure is 37% for Netflix, 47% for Spotify, and 89% for YouTube. The ACMA, the media regulator, also released data. How we watch and listen to content says that 52% of Australians listen to podcasts in 2025. Spotify was the most popular for audio. Spotify recently launched a verification badge for some podcast creators. That's good, says Eric Johnson, writing for Pod News Today, but he argues Spotify can and should do more. You'll find his article linked from our show notes today. Book summary service Blinkist has announced it's to stop using AI narrators. Thomas Anderson announced the decision, adding, "I recognise the error we made in experimenting with AI narration, but I'm pleased we were able to correct it." Casper hasn't advertised on podcasts for over 2 years, but they're back. So says a news service, Podcast Advertiser Radar, which checks podcast episode notes for sponsors to give quick, actionable information to salespeople. A tool called AI Audio Enhancer has been launched by PodSqueeze. The tool corrects echo, audio with irregular volume or background noise. It starts at $9.99 a month. Podground announced the winners of its second Creator Micro Grant. 2 podcast creators will each receive $500 to invest in the growth and sustainability of their podcasts. Also announced this weekend the winners of the 2026 Sheffield DocFest Awards. Odyssey 4 has just entered a public beta. The audio editing company was exhibiting at the podcast show in London, and whenever I went to try to speak to them, they were talking to other people. Anyway, it's had a visual makeover, properly supports plugins, and should be backwards compatible with version 3. A few features won't make it though. Tempo tracks, LADSPA plugins, whatever they are, and VAMP analyzers, ditto. And Kay Adams and Mark Jennings have been announced as hosts of the Scottish Podcast Awards later this month. The event is on June the 25th. And if you're wanting unique ambient tracks, then Reverie is a new and fascinating tool for Windows or Mac. You give it a piece of music like our little bleeps just there, and it'll make a unique ambient music bed from it. Up to 30 minutes long if you wanted to. This is a little bit based on our own custom music from TM Studios. Reverie is particularly useful for true crime shows, for game developers, or anyone else that wants copyright-free ambient tracks. It has a free tier, but the Pro tier is just a one-off €19. That's about $22. You'll find it linked, of course, from our newsletter at podnews.net. Oh, I'm feeling quite sleepy now. Anyway, it's a Monday, so time for some tech stuff with RSS.com. The Alliance for Measurement in Podcasting, AMP, is proposing a definition of a play, which is 30 seconds of content played, one that Spotify has already implemented. But the IAB's existing podcast measurement guidelines defines a valid download as where enough content to play for 60 seconds has been downloaded, a duration that's twice as long as AMP's 30-second figure. A play is different to a download. A download may not result in a play after all, but harmonizing the thresholds might make things easier for everyone. So, what would happen if we recalculated download data to the same 30-second threshold? We asked our sponsors RSS.com whether they would be able to take a week's worth of data and calculate total downloads using a 30-second threshold rather than a 60-second threshold. They did, and they reported back across those 7 days the difference between counting a download at 30 versus 60 seconds ranged from 0.9% to 1.06% higher. In other words, a change to a 30-second threshold results in around a 1% increase in downloads. That's no real change at all. So if Spotify and, as seems likely, YouTube both agree on a 30-second threshold for play counts, then that 30-second threshold may also make sense to use for downloads. And now we know that it makes no difference to the numbers. And in podcast news, Podbiz this week talks to Jerry Eaton, CEO and co-founder of Type C Studios. She suggests that some networks are offering 25% of the money a narrative podcast needs to be produced, hoping that people are desperate enough to say yes. That's been really disheartening to see, she says. Wondered about the top 5 toilet cubicle-related social norms? Dive into the wonderfully weird world of the unwritten rules that guide our behaviour in different settings. Not your nana's norms makes sociology fun, accessible and a little bit cheeky. Something anyone can enjoy, not just the lucky few who've taken a sociology class. And Canaroga Shark Media has dropped a bonus episode of their hit Crown and Controversy, King Charles, following the King's pivotal United States visit from April. From a historic address to Congress to moments of quiet connection in New York, this episode explores how decades of preparation, scrutiny and patience culminated in a performance that reshaped global perceptions of Charles. And this podcast is sponsored by Spots Now. Spots Now is the AI operating system for podcast advertising. They're running a webinar on this Thursday, to learn how podcast networks can use AI to maximize their sales output using Claude, using agents, and using ChatGPT. It's free to book at spotsnow.io/webinar, or click on the link in our show notes. And that's the latest from our newsletter. To read all the stories and subscribe for free, we're at podnews.net.